This is Gemara Metziah Daf Vav, and we pick it up on the very top of Vav Amid Aleph. Ve'elaha Gemara Metziah Daf Vav is quite the famous Daf in Shas, as we'll get to Amid Beis, the famous sugya of Takfa Kain. But there's a beauty in seeing the whole thing at once. I'm sure this is a Gemara that many people in the course of their yeshiva days spent weeks and months on, but hopefully we'll spend a few short moments, but get some clarity as well. So says the Gemara on the top of Vav Amid Aleph, we're in the middle of discussing what is the story with Chashid Amimayna Chashid Ashvuasa. That if someone is suspected of swearing falsely, do we as well suspect him? No, incorrect. If someone is suspected of mamain, do we also suspect him of swearing falsely? Says the Gemara, which we're now learning the reason why there's a shua in our Mishnah of Shnei Meichse Betalos is because the Dinder Rabbanan, to make him swear. The word Hesses literally means to incite, to try to convince him to admit that he's lying. Says the Gemara, wait. Why don't we say that we don't let him swear because he's chashid, we suspect him. And furthermore, 3 lines at the top of Vavam and Aleph. Haditani Rav Chia, that Rav Chia learned. Shneim nishbayin v'naitlin. Says Rav Chia, both of them swear and take mibala bayis. In the case of Chan v'niyal min kasai, when the person told the store owner to pay his workers, and he claims he paid the workers, and the workers claim he never got paid. What did Rav Chia say? They both swear to the balabais they take. Why? Which is to say that if we're suspectful about the cash, also on the shvuah v'su. And number 3, Hadam Rav Shisha, that which Rav Shisha said, Shalosh shvuos. 3 shvuos, shvuah shaloi pashati ba. This is the shvuas hashaimrim. We had this towards the end of the Gemara by Metziah. You have to make a shvuah that you were not negligent. Shvuah shaloi shalachta bayad. Shvuah that you didn't use the item. Shvuah she'en b'rshusi is on your possession. Why? Ella concludes the Gemara about 10 lines from the top of Vav Amid Aleph. First one line is Loi. Loi Amrinan Migid Chashid Amimayna Chashid Ashvuasa. We're not suspectful, even though we suspect someone about mamain, but we do not suspect him about swearing falsely. Now, what would the reason be? Why would we not be suspectful about swearing falsely? And the simple reason is, just to scroll back for a quick second to Taisus and Hayam and Beis. Taisus says, you know why? When Hashem, Seres Adibrais, do not swear falsely, loisisa, the world shook. So there's a special and particular severity to swearing. So concludes the Gemara, even if we suspect someone about cash, we're not going to suspect him of swearing falsely. Abaye Amar, says Abaye. Abaye argues. This is Rabbi Yochanan. That's concluding. Says Abaye, no, we are suspectful. Abaye Amar Chayshinan Shema Milva Yeshana Yesh Layolav. Says Abaye, you know why in the Mishnah we allow him to swear? Because we're suspectful that maybe one of the people has an old loan against him, and therefore it's not that he's really chashram amayna. That's why he's grabbing the talis. So maybe if we were to give him a shvuah, what would the reason be? The shvuah would make him admit. So we're really not chashram amayna. Says Maryachi Nishka b'lei shvuah. If that's the case, he should take without any shvuah at all. We don't know for sure. Ask the Gemara, do we not say Tavis Memayna Misfeika Mishtabanami Misafek? Do we not say that the same person, if there's a suffix, and he'll take matters into his own hands and he'll go grab the money, Misafek will also swear? Amar Rav Shishas B'Reid Ravidi. Absolutely not. A beautiful psychology which we probably could all understand. Parshi inshi misafik shvua. V'loi parshi misafik v'moina. My taima. Mama isa b'chazara, shvua lesa b'chazara. Money, you do owe me, you don't owe me, okay? No, if it ends up being that I grabbed incorrectly, I could always pay you back. Come Rosh Hashanah, I'll make good. But a shvuah, you can't undo your shvuah. If you swore falsely, it's all over. Therefore says the Gemara, that that's the reason why misafek will grab the cash, but misafek he will not go and make a shvuah. And that really concludes the sugya from last year, which really concludes the first 5 blot, which is dealing particularly with the shvuah in the Mishnah. Rav Nachman learning it's a shvuah zeseh, is a shvuah d'Rabbanan. Rav Yechon holding we're not chayshed as shvuasa, and Abaye concluding that in the case of a safek, that's where we would put a shvuah. And continues the Gemara, the 2 dots, smack in the middle of the Amud basically. Ba'i Rav Zira has a shayla. Takva echad b'faneinu mahu. What is the halacha? They both walk into Bezdin holding this talis, and before anything happens, one of them grabs the talis in front of us. Says the Gemara, Heichi Dami, what's the case? If the other guy, after he grabs it, is quiet, so he's admitting. They walk into Bezdin holding the talis. Reuven grabs it away, and Shimon's silent. Clearly, Shimon's admitting that it's not his talis. And if Shimon is screaming, what are you doing? Grab me my talis. What should Shimon have done? He should have punched Reuven in the face. He grabbed the talis at Bezdin, so he starts screaming. Says the Gemara, first he was quiet, and then he started screaming. So what's the shayla? Do we say that his shtika, the fact that he was silent, that means he's admitting it's not his? No, there's another svar over here. Since now he's screaming, it reveals to us that what? The Haid Shasik, why originally was he Shasik Meikara originally? Because Savar, he thought, Akachazi Rabbanon. He thought I'm in Bezdin. What, I have to scream in Bezdin? The rabbis are watching him grab it away from me, so he's quiet. He sees they're not doing it. He thinks so, then he starts screaming. That is the shayla of Rav Zera. Takva echad b'faneinu. What is the halacha? Omar Rav Nachman. Comes along Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman tries to answer the shayla of Rav Zera. Tashima, first word in line is Amar Rav Nachman, Medvar Mamurim, Sheshneim Adukim Boi. Says the Raisa, when is the din in our Mishnah relevant? When they are both holding on to the talis. Avlois the talis, Yitzis Midachas Yada, Shalachan Me'en. But if only one of them is holding the talis, then the halacha is that the burden of proof is upon him to prove that it is his. So says the Gemara, Heichi Dami, what is this case in which we're saying that if one of them is holding, the other has to bring proof? If you're going to tell me, like the simple way that it's being learned, that they walk into Bezdin, Reuven's holding the talis, so obviously Shimon, if he wants it, I have to bring a proof. Pshita, that can't be what Rav Nachman is teaching us to this brisa. Ella, you know what the brisa must mean? One of them grabbed it in front of us. And what do we see from the brisa? That the other one is the burden of proof is upon him. Says Rav Nachman, this proves the shayla of Rav Zera. Takva echad b'faneinu. The other has to bring proof. Says the Gemara, no raya loyi hakamayaskin. And you know what the case is? Konda asu lekamon. The case is in which kidit fisu la tervayu. The case is they came holding the talis together. Va'amrina anhu, and we told them Bezdin Paskin zilu plugu. Bezdin Paskin yachlaiku. They both walk into Bezdin holding the talis. Our Mishnah shnayim oichazin betalis. Bezdin says, okay, go and split it. V'nafku, and they went out. And then a few minutes later, there's a knock at the Bezdin door. Father also, they come back in. Now they come back in. Only one of them is holding it. What's going on here? So hi Amar, the guy who's holding it says, guess what? Aduye oidile. He saw the light. He was moide. But hi Amar, the other guy says, absolutely not. I rented it to him. I rented it to him. So that's the discussion. Reuven walks back into Bezin with the talis, and Bezin says, what's going on? Shimon says, I rented him the talis. And Reuven says, no, he admitted to me that it's mine. So on this case, this is the rice that Rav Nachman is quoting. We tell it to the guy who's not holding it, who claims he rented it to him. Until now, you walked into Bezin for saying, Ani mitzasiya kula shali. Till now, you suspected him of being a gazlan of stealing. And you went and you rented it to him without witnesses. We don't believe you. You're not the muhsik. You're not holding the item. You have to bring a proof if you want to get back this item. Teretz number 1. Teretz number 2. Teretz number 2 is as it's learned. It's true. They walked into Bezdin and only one of them was holding it. So what's the chiddush? Pshita ve'edach, and the other one is misrach ba'seruchi. The other one is grabbing onto the fringes of the talis. One's holding the talis proper, and the other one is holding onto the fringes of the talis. So in this case, that's where this Bryce is teaching me what? And what's the Chiddush? Explains the Gemara. On the narrow line. The Chiddush is that even Somches, who we've seen already, normally holds the Amar. What does Simchas normally hold? Money that is lying in doubt. We have to split. Bilai shvua. Simchas says no shvua. We have a safek. Split it. But in this case, in which one is holding the talis and the other comes in grabbing with the fringes, Simchas admits Tisircha lav klum. That sircha, that holding the fringes is nothing, as Rashi says, and therefore it's not a case of a safek, and therefore there would be no din of yachlaiku in this case. That's why the Brisa says that the din is hamoitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. So the kasha of Rav Zira was, what happens if takva echad bifaninu? Rav Nachman brought a raya that the din is hamoitzi mechaveroi olav haraya from a case if only one of them is holding it. The Gemara proves that indeed the case is in which one is holding on to the fringes, that the other has to bring a moitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. So says the Gemara, let's go full circle to understand Rav Zira's shaila. Rav Zira had a shaila again. Rav Zira wanted to know what happens if one of them grabs in front of us. Rav Nachman tried to prove it, and we finally got to the bottom of what the case of Rav Nachman is. Says the Gemara now, what happens if you're going to tell me that when one grabs it, we take it away from him? Then it's pashit, that if instead of grabbing it, he said, I'm being makdish, I'm consecrating this animal to the base of Mikdash, would not work. But which in reality seemed to be the psak of the Gemara, because Rav Nachman proved from a case of Shnayim Adukim. But if only one is holding it, the halach is the other has to bring a raya. So it sounds ein moitzina samiyadai. So ask the Gemara, hekdeisha b'loi takva mahu. What is the status if instead of grabbing it, you know what he did? He was makdish the animal. Instead of grabbing it, he said he's giving it to the Beis HaMikdash. Do we say, says the Gemara, Kivan Damar Mar, 3 lines from the bottom. Kivan Damar Mar, the general klal is that say something to the Beis HaMikdash is as if you gave it over to your friend. Therefore, Kimande Takva Dami, it's as if you grabbed it Hoitelma, no. Hashta miya haloi takva. Lamaisa, you did not grab it. V'uksiv, and the pasuk says, V'ishki yaktish es beisai kodesh. That teaches us what? Ma beisai bershusa, I have called bershusa afuke hai delor bershusa. That's the only way to be makdish something is if it's bershusa. And if you didn't grab it, it's not ber shusay. So fundamental shaila, if you hold takva echa b'vanenu, you do not take it away from him. That if Reuven grabs it, Shimon has to bring a proof. What's the story? If Reuven gets up and says, I'm being makdish into the Beis HaMikdash, do we say Amirasa ligavaya is like Kimisirasa lahed yidami? Or no, the only way you can be makdish something if it's in your possession. Tashima says the Gemara, I'll bring you a raya. We'll try to answer the shayla as we turn over to Vavam and Beis, where we answer the shayla from Tahim Susa. There was a bathhouse, Davi Minsu Ale Beitrei. There was a bathhouse that two people are fighting over the ownership of this bathhouse. Hayamar dideyo, hayamar dideyo. Each one's claiming it's his. Kam chan minayu. One of them gets up in the middle of the fight. Akadsha, and he's makdish. He says, this bathhouse I'm giving to the Beis HaMikdash. And the result of this guy being makdish, it was what? Parshi mino Rav Chananya, Rav Aishia, Vekulu Rabbanan. All the Rabbanan in town stopped using this bathhouse. So Rav Aishia says, Rabba, when you go to Rav Chisda, to Kafri, ask him this Shaila. Ask him what is the halacha of this misusa, of this bathhouse. Is it lemaisa considered that it's part of a Beis HaMikdash or not? So as Rabba is traveling, Kiyasal is Surah, he gets to Surah. So before he got to Rav Chisda, he's now in Surah. Omar le Rav Hamnuna masnisani. So he's discussing with Rav Hamnuna, and Rav Hamnuna says, okay, you're going to go ask the Rebbe Rav Chisda, but I'll tell you, Lamaisa, it's a Mishnah. What's the Mishnah? Safek b'chayrais. Safek b'chayrais. Echad b'char adam. V'echad b'char behema. We have a Safek b'char. We're not sure if the animal that is born is the b'char. As Rashi says, 3 lines to the top, going behema sheyalda. Vein yoidua im bachra kvar imlav. We don't know if this animal prior had a different offspring, so we don't know if this animal is the firstborn. Bein b'char adam, excuse me. One more time. Whether it's a b'char, one more time, English. Whether it's a suffix of a b'char of a person, or whether it's a suffix of a b'char of an animal. Again, what does that mean? Rashi says, the mother had a miscarriage, and we don't know if it was a type of miscarriage that patters afterwards, meaning was it just a ruach, or was it a real miscarriage, meaning so is the next child, the b'char. Bein tahirin, bein tameim. Whether it's tar or tame, what is the halacha? Ha'amaitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. Says the Mishnah that we have to bring a proof. Ha'amaitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. So let's take this slowly, as this is the famous, complicated part of the sugya of takva kain. So let's take this slowly with Rashi. What does it mean? Ha'amaitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. Rashi explains on the fourth narrow line. Because we think right now, in Biyad Yisraelim, if any of these entities, let's just go with the animal. You have an animal in your property, and you don't know if it's a bachar. If it's a bachar, it goes to the kayin. If not, you keep it. So it's in the possession of the Yisrael. Have a kayin moitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. The kayin has to bring the proof if he wants to take this animal. So now, what's going to be the question? V'im takva kayin. The kayin grabs the animal. V'shasek Yisrael. And the Yisrael is quiet. V'hadar tzavach. And then he screams. Then, have Yisrael mitzvah bechaveroi. Then the Yisrael has to bring a proof. So Rashi's playing out for us, as the Gemara is about to say, that we're going to connect this case directly back to the Shaila of Rav Zera, which as well is going to answer up the Shaila of Hekdei Shamau, that if you makdish it, because we're going to say that this animal is Bereshus Yisrael, so then the kohen comes and grabs it. That's equivalent to our case of two people walking to Bezdin, and one grabs it from the other one. The one that had it grabbed from is quiet and then screams. What's the halacha? So what would we see? We would see that the kohen grabbing it would work. So says the Gemara, V'tani Alam. And we learned on this Braisa, Asurim begiza ubeavoida. The halacha is that after the kohen grabs it, this safek bechar is aser begiza beavoida. Why? Because it might very well, says Rashi, misafek shema kachimate, because the kohen grabbed it, so it might very well be a bechar. So says the Gemara, what's the raya? The hacha in this case, de amar takva kohen. In this case, we said if the kohen grabs it, ein Metziah naisei miyadai. Why? Dekatani, because we learn how much v'chver alav raya. And v'chiloi takva, and even still, if he did not grab it, what did the Mishnah paskin? Asurim begiza ba'avoida. So clearly what? It gets the status of hektish. So says the Gemara, what was our question? We have this misusa. We have this item that they're fighting over. One guy gets up and is makdish it. We had our case of Shnai Meichsim Metalis. They're fighting over it. One guy, and we said, Intim Saleimar, Takva Echad Bifaninu, he keeps it. What's the status if you're makdish it? You know what the Gemara proves? From the case of this Safek Bechar, that we paskin on it, it's Aser Begiza Be'avoida. We're paskining, Takva Kayin Ein Metziah naisei miyadai, so the cases are equivalent. And we see that it's hektish. We see that it gets the status of hektish. So proves the Gemara, that's the now this proves well why all the Gedailim were abstaining from using this bathhouse, because they paskin that as a kedusha onto it. That was Rav Hanuna's raya. Says the Gemara. Let's just see one more Rashi. V'chiloi takva. And if the kohen did not grab it, Chamer koyach hektish la'isa begiz v'avoida, salasa begiz v'avoida. That's the raya. Shma mina dintim salaymar takva in Metziah naisei miyadai hektisha mukdeshes. And the fact that it's also begiz v'avoida shows us that hektish is more chamer, and therefore, if you hold that if you were to have grabbed, you would keep it, hektisha would be mikudeshes, and you would not be allowed to use it, and that's the reason why by the bathhouse no one used it. That's how Rav Hamnuna explains. Amarle Rabba. Rabba says, what in the world is your raya, Rav Hamnuna? Kedushas bechar ka'amrit. You're bringing me a raya from a bechar? You know what I'm going to tell you? Really, let's say the kohen would grab it, we would not let him keep it. So if we would not let him keep it, the whole raya falls off. And still it's asur begiza ba'avoida. Why? Because bechar is different. The kedusha haba me'eleha shiny. Because what is bechar? Bechar is an entity that the kedusha comes on its own with the birth, and that's the reason why misafik we're saying it's asur begiza ba'avoida. But it's no raya at all to our case. Again, we thought it was a raya predicated on the fact that if the kohen were to grab it, we let him keep it. Says Rabba, no raya. Really, we won't let the kohen keep it. So why is it asur begiza ba'avoida? Says the Gemara, because it's kedusha haba me'ileho. Omar le Rav Chananya le Rabba. Rav Chananya says to Rabba, I'll prove to you, Tani the Metziah, that what you're saying makes sense. That what's the raya? The raya is that Tokfa Kayin, we would not let him keep it. As Rashi, about 8 lines from the wide lines, points out to bring a raya to Metziah miyadai. What's the raya? Sveikas nichnas l'dir le'yisaser. We have a bunch of animals, and we're not sure what their status is, and they all enter into the corral to think of meiser. If you're going to tell me if a kohen grabs it, he keeps it. Why do you bring it into the corral? If the kohen's allowed to grab it, that means at some level it's called the money of the kohen. If it's the money of the kohen, how am I allowed to utilize these animals to give off meiser? The Mishnah Brisa says, "Asveikus tichlasin l'dir le'yisaser." How do you be allowed to do that if it belongs to the kohen? Amar Leah Baye Uriah Terabba is incorrect. Imi Shamaha Light this Lamar. That's not a raya. Why? Because Achmayaskinan could go into less Tisha. He only had 9 animals plus this 10th animal, which is a suffix. Dimanavshach, whichever way you look at it. If this 10th animal is a bar chiyuv, meaning it belongs to Yisrael, shaber kameiser. It's great that you put it into the corral to give meiser. The lav bar chiyuv, tishalav bar yisur nenu. 9 animals, you don't have to give meiser. And never says Abaya, there's no raya from this brisa to Rabba. Rabba can still hold tak for kohen, that if the kohen grabs it, Metziah miyada, we take it away from him. But you don't have a raya, said Abaye. With this we conclude Abaye is chayzer, and he says lava milsahi amri. What I said is incorrect. Tisveika lav bari surehu. Because if it's a suffix, there's no meiser at all. Titnan. We learned in a Mishnah. The truth is we're going to stop over here. We'll pick it up explaining this din of Abaya so we don't have to rush it the next year. B'siyata dishmai.